What an insane hand.
6.9 million.
The fuck just happened?
Hello. Liv Boeree used to be considered one of the best female players in the world. She then retired from poker, but we all know that it's hard to leave this game for good. She came back for WSOP in the Bahamas for the 25k main event and scored $2.8 million prize for 4th place, and today we're going to look at a few hands played by her on the way. First hand starts with a limp from Aziz on small blind. He has the biggest stack at the table and should fold only a few worst hands. It's worth to mention that against another very big stack, he should mostly limp here, also with some very strong hands. Liv decided to check back her 9-7 off, and we can see that in this situation she can raise more than a third of her hands, and offsuit trash hands are the best to balance the value range. 9-7 off is raising some portion of the time here, but checking this hand back is also GTO approved. On the flop, Aziz checked his mystery hand and its most common action on this board. Liv bet her pair of 7s for 1 BB and this is okay, but solver mixes bets and checks with most of the second pairs, and bets this with the best kicker more often than weaker ones. Betting the second pair has some advantages. It gets some value from lower pairs, high cards, and also folds out some hands that can outdraw us. On the other hand, it gets awkward when we get check raised, and that is what happened in the hand. We can see that small blind should be very polarized here. His value range is mostly sets and 2 pairs, and his best bluffs are hands with double backdoors, like 9-6 suited or ace-deuce, that blocks some continues and still has 5 clear outs to make the best hand. Liv called and solver likes this play. It continues with around half of the still very wide range and isn't folding any pairs yet. On the turn, Aziz continued for around half of the pot. This is the least used sizing here and solver prefers to bet either bigger or smaller. Against this bet, Liv decided to call. Solver starts to fold some hands as strong as pair of queens and folds most of third pairs, but we can see that she has to continue with some fraction of them, so calling here isn't a mistake. Jack of diamonds completed the board and the Brazilian player emptied the clip with a small overbet. He continued his story from the flop, and his value range here is pretty thin and it's only the best 2-pair combos and sets. His bluffs should come from low ace-x combos, ace-deuce and some missed backdoor draws like 5-4 or 4-3 suited. Liv fought for a very long time. She has a pretty good bluff catcher because she doesn't block any of the bluffs and blocks some value hands like king 7 or pocket 7s. Solver actually likes this hand more than a pair of queens. What's also interesting is that her hand is a nice candidate to bluff the river. She finally made the call and was very surprised at the showdown. She was right that he was weak, but he took this line with pocket 10s that made no sense from the start to finish. Second hand I want to share is an interesting multi-way preflop spot. It starts with a raise from big stack on early position and ace-king suited of course fits into the top quarter of hands he should open here. Liv in the next seat over has a very close decision. She should be very tight in this scenario, continuing with only 10% of hands, mostly by raising small or just going all in. Pocket 7s are on the edge and solver folds it most of the time, but raising and calling are on the table, so it's not a mistake. A Ukrainian player called king queen suited with less than 8 big blinds. This might look fishy at first sight, because this seems like a jam or fold spot. But when we look at solver ranges, this is the only hand that wants to call here with full frequency, so very well played. We already have 3 players in hand and now the decision is on a small blind with 30 bigs and pocket deuces. He folded his hand and this is a mistake. He should be pretty tight here, but pocket pairs are perfect to play. He has great pot odds to just hit his set, big blind won't squeeze too much and this hand will be very easy to play post-flop. Also on 30 bigs he shouldn't worry too much about losing a huge pot in a set over set scenario. Third hand starts with a raise from Zubov on hijack with king queen suited. Action folds out to Liv on big blind with mystery hand, but to analyze it I'll spoil you that she has 8-7 of spades here. When we look at the GTO range, we see that the solver loves to jam this specific hand, same as for the offsuit variant. I changed her flatting range to include it. This won't affect overall strategy too much and will allow us to see how this specific hand should behave. On the flop, Zubov c-bet for a third of the pot, and that is standard play here. Same for Liv, who has no other play than check call her second pair. On the turn we see a very interesting card, 7 of diamonds, that pairs the board and brings another flush draw. This is much better for big blind, who has a lot of trips now. Solvers like to donk bet these turn cards, and that is maybe one of the biggest changes in the game of poker since they were introduced. Before it was standard to check to aggressor, and donk betting was considered a fishy play, but now we know that on cards that favor an out of position player, this is part of GTO. I don't know if Liv is up to date with the newest strategies. She either checked because it used to be the normal play, or she is on the next level and knows that she should have some best 7s in her checking range. On the turn, Zubov fired a second barrel. And we see that because this is not the best card for him, he should check back almost 2/3 of the time. King-Queen is good enough to bet, and solver even sometimes overbet jam this combo. Liv check raised all in, and solver prefers to continue slow playing this combo, but it's check raising some ace-7 off and other 7s, so it's not a disaster. Zubov fought for a very long time and finally folded. Solver doesn't fold any kings here. The pot is too big for that, and it's not that hard to find semi-bluffs in big blind's range. This just shows how hard is it to call for tournament live deep in a huge tournament, holding only a bluff catcher, and why aggression usually pays off in that stage. I hope you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and see you next time. Bye.